9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. Hope you had a good week. I am really glad it's Friday and the weekend. For Dom, whenever he gets in, he can see a new mug today. I rarely drink out of that one because you have to hand wash it. And we have quite a few things that we have to hand wash at times. And I don't have time for that. Yeah, this is not an official new day and time, by the way. I just was not feeling well on Wednesday to where I could be streaming. So, but I also wanted to keep reading. So I figured out which day I could do it and worked with that. There we go. Freaking camera sometimes, man. I don't know. Whatever. Stupid thing. More centrally located here now. But I'm glad to be back and to finish this up. I did some calculations and I might just only read A Study in Scarlet because that would line up. Or what I might do is just do kind of like a review thing. Okay, let me start over. At the end of the month, I will be out of the country, so I cannot be streaming, even if I'm on the road. I'll be in Cambodia and Vietnam, so not going to have the best internet on my ship. So with that in mind, we'll figure it out later. But my thought process is I could either read both of them and just have a 2-week delay in the middle of the Sign of the Four. Aha, I said it right this time. Or I can do like a little mini review the week before I go on my trip, because this is going to end next week. the study in Scarlet. So I'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. We can chat about it next week too. Otherwise, I'd be starting like the first set of chapters for the Sign of the Four the week before I leave for 2 weeks. So not ideal, but I could do a Let It Simmer where we talk about a study in Scarlet and then come back, continue with some more Sherlock after my trip. So we'll figure it out. But I do want to say hi to everybody in Legatus. Hello and hail. I figure may not have as many people here as normal because this is a different time. And I know F&T is still going on. So hi, Sam. I said hi in chat, of course, but I want to pull your name up too. And what's up, James? Hello. Welcome. How are you? So are you saying you have a long weekend? What's your long weekend for, Legatus? Hello, Freeside. I don't know if I've seen you before here. Welcome, either way. Glad to see you. Thought I did not know thinking was required. It depends on the topic. As you saw the wheels turning in my head for the proper word, which topic wasn't really what I was wanting. Situation. That's what I was wanting. Depends on the situation. Some things you shut off the thinking for. And as some of you know, most of you know, my inner monologue is significantly different than everyone else's. And people, when I try to explain it to them, think that I don't think, that I don't have thoughts in my head. I do, just not the same way the rest of you do. How are you and your troublemaking brother? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, James. Were you guys close? That's so rough. My condolences, man. Well, hello, Faye. How are you? Welcome. I am glad to see you. Heritage Day, first Monday of August. Are you like celebrating your good genes or something? That kind of heritage? Are you going full Sydney Sweeney? We know what her initials are. Okay, so I thought I recognized from probably the Screaming into the Void. Well, welcome. Thank you for stopping by. I don't know if you know what this is, but basically I love to read and I don't have a lot of time to do so. So I forced it into my life by streaming it. And I've read books that I've already read before, but maybe other people hadn't. I've also read books that I've never read before and people in chat have. So it's just a fun experience every Wednesday. Normally, this is not my normal time. And that's cooking the books. Basically, it's a play on words or phrases, really. Because you're not technically reading it. I'm reading it to you. So I'm cooking the books for you. Really? We're twinning. I support this. You're doing good. Well, happy birthday. Thank you for stopping by on your birthday. I feel honored, my dear. That is awesome. I have an August birthday myself. Maybe I should add that. You need to add your birthday to my calendar just in case I don't see you every August 1st everywhere. Faye's birthday. I do this for my peoples. B-Day. Repeat every year. Boom. Saved. Now, if we don't chit chat next year, I'll have the reminder and I can message you. Don't ask me why. It's just how I do. It's who I am. All right. What did we read last week? Oh, we discovered who the killer was last week. And it was a freaking cabbie. And it was kind of like a cliffhanger where we don't even really know the who, what, when, where, why. Like, we know it from Sherlock's side. And he had it figured out. The two detectives, like the official two detectives, thought they had it figured out until basically they brought their information together and realized, well, that can't be the case. And yeah, quickest recap ever. But that's basically what happened last week. Well, thank you for lurking. And I appreciate it, James. Ah, we're people. We understand each other then, Faye. But anyway, I kind of want to get to it because I did kind of take a peek last week while streaming, so it wasn't cheating for any purposes. I didn't read any further than what I did last week, and we're just starting in like a random freaking location in part 2 of this. So it'll be fun to see, like, are the two parts gonna tie in together? I don't know. Oh, Lord. I read a really good book and found the author was friends with someone who was convicted of murder. Well, that's interesting. Found out. Yeah. I understood what you were putting down, picked up what you were putting down. But let's get to it. If you guys haven't watched the previous streams to know what happened, this is basically Sherlock's like first case, and the first time he met Watson, and Watson and him are like roommates so they can split costs and everything. And Watson is learning a lot about the way that Sherlock works and the way his brain works and all of the different things that he'll notice about a person to be able to understand who they are without having met them before at all. And that's kind of how he treats crime scenes. And he was called to one, and he basically had it solved before the official detectives, where it's their job to solve these things, were able to. And he was right. They were wrong in their assumptions. And we're here at part 2. So extended recap, if anyone hasn't read it or watched the previous streams. So let's start with part 2. So we have A Study in Scarlet, Part 2, The Country of the Saints, Chapter 1, On the Great Alkali Plain. In the central portion of the great North American continent, there lies an arid and repulsive desert, which for many a long year served as a barrier against the advance of civilization. From the Sierra Nevada to Nebraska, and from the Yellowstone River in the north to the Colorado upon the south, is a region of desolation and silence. Nor is nature always in one mood throughout this grim district. It comprises snow-capped and lofty mountains and dark and gloomy valleys. There are swift-flowing rivers which dash through jagged canyons, and there are enormous plains which in winter are white with snow and in summer are gray with the saline alkali dust. They all preserve, however, the common characteristics of barrenness, inhospitality, and misery. I feel like this doesn't color a good light for that area. Being from Montana myself and having family in like Idaho and Wyoming and living in Colorado, even Colorado is beautiful, people. I know back then it's a little different because this is the 1870s after all. There are no inhabitants of this land of despair. A band of Pawnees or of Blackfeet may occasionally traverse it in order to reach other hunting grounds, but the hardiest of the braves are glad to lose sight of those awesome plains and to find themselves once more upon their prairies. The coyote skulks among the scrub, the buzzard flaps heavily through the air, and the clumsy grizzly bear lumbers through the dark ravines and picks up such sustenance as it can amongst the rocks. These are the sole dwellers in the wilderness. In the whole world, there can be no more dreary view than that from the northern slope of the Sierra Blanco. As far as the eye can reach stretches the great flat plainland, all dusted over with patches of alkali, and intersected by clumps of the dwarfish chaparral bushes. Chaparral? I never remember how to pronounce that. On the extreme verge of the horizon lie a long chain of mountain peaks, with their rugged summits flecked with snow. In this great stretch of country, there is no sign of life, nor of anything appertaining to life. There is no bird in the steel blue heaven, no movement upon the dull gray earth. Above all, there is absolute silence. Listen as one may, there is no shadow of a sound in all that mighty wilderness, nothing but silence, complete and heart-subduing silence. It has been said there is nothing appertaining to life upon the broad plain. That is hardly true. Looking down from the Sierra Blanco, one sees a pathway traced out across the desert, which winds away and is lost in the extreme distance. It is rutted with wheels and trodden down by the feet of many adventurers. Here and there are scattered white objects which glisten in the sun and stand out against the dull deposit of alkali. Approach and examine them. They are bones, some large and coarse, others small and more delicate. The former have belonged to oxen, and the latter to men. For 1,500 miles, one may trace this ghastly caravan route by these scattered remains of those who had fallen by the wayside. Looking down on this very scene, there stood upon the 4th of May, 1847, a solitary traveler. Okay, so now we went back in time. His appearance was such that he might have been the very genius or demon of the region. An observer would have found it difficult to say whether he was nearer to 40 or to 60. His face was lean and haggard, and the brown, parchment-like skin was drawn tightly over the projecting bones. His long brown hair and beard were all flecked and dashed with white. His eyes were sunken in his head and burned with an unnatural luster, while the hand which grasped his rifle was hardly more fleshy than that of a skeleton. As he stood, he leaned upon his weapon for support, and yet his tall figure and the massive framework of his bones suggested a wiry and vigorous constitution. His gaunt face, however, and his clothes, which hung so baggily over his shriveled limbs, proclaimed what it was that gave him that senile and decrepit appearance. The man was dying from hunger and from thirst. He had toiled painfully down the ravine and on to this little elevation, in the vain hope of seeing some signs of water. Now the great salt plain stretched before his eyes, and the distant belt of savage mountains, without a sign anywhere of plant or tree, which might indicate the presence of moisture. In all that broad landscape, there was no gleam of hope. North and east and west, he looked with wild, questioning eyes, and then he realized that his wanderings had come to an end, and that there, on that barren crag, he was about to die. Why not here, as well as in a feather bed, 20 years hence, he muttered, as he seated himself in the shelter of a boulder. Before sitting down, he had deposited upon the ground his useless rifle, and also a large bundle tied up in a gray shawl, which he had carried slung over his right shoulder. It appeared to be somewhat too heavy for his strength, for in lowering it, it came down on the ground with some little violence. Instantly, there broke from the gray parcel a little moaning cry, and from it there protruded a small scared face with very bright brown eyes and two little speckled, dimpled fists. "You've hurt me," said a childish voice reproachfully. "Have I, though?" the man answered penitently. I didn't go for to do it." As he spoke, he unwrapped the gray shawl and extricated a pretty little girl of about 5 years of age, whose dainty shoes and smart pink frock with its little linen apron all bespoke a mother's care. The child was pale and wan, but her healthy arms and legs showed that she had suffered less than her companion. How is it now? He answered anxiously, for she was still rubbing the towsy golden curls which covered the back of her head. Toesy? Toesy golden curls? Like a towhead, I guess. Kiss it and make it well, she said, with perfect gravity, showing the injured part up to him. That's what Mother used to do. Where's Mother? Mother's gone. I guess you'll see her before long. Gone, eh? Said the little girl. Funny, she didn't say goodbye. She almost always did if she was just going over to Auntie's for tea, and now she's been away 3 days. Say, it's awful dry, ain't it? Ain't there no water, nor nothing to eat? No, there ain't nothing, dearie. You'll just need to be patient a while, and then you'll be all right. Put your head up against me like that, and then you'll feel bullier. It ain't easy to talk when your lips are like leather, but I guess I'd best let you know how the cards lie. What's that you've got? Pretty things, fine things, cried the little girl enthusiastically, holding up 2 glittering fragments of mica. When we goes back to home, I'll give them to Brother Bob. You'll see prettier things than them soon, said the man confidently. You just wait a bit. I was going to tell you, though. You remember when we left the river? Oh, yes. Well, we reckoned we'd strike another river soon, do you see? But there was something wrong. Compasses or map or something, and it didn't turn up. Water ran out. Just except a little drop for the likes of you and you couldn't wash yourself, interrupted his companion gravely, staring up at his grimy visage. No, nor drink. And Mr. Bender, he was the first to go, and then Indian Pete, first to go. Interesting. And then Indian Pete, and then Mrs. McGregor, and then Johnny Hones, and then dearie, your mother. Then Mother's a debtor too, cried the little girl, dropping her face in her pinafore and sobbing bitterly. Yes, they all went except you and me. Then I thought there was some chance of water in this direction, so I heaved you over my shoulder and we tramped it together. It don't seem as though we've improved matters. There's an almighty small chance for us now. Do you mean that we are going to die too? Asked the child, checking her sobs and raising her tear-stained face. I guess that's about the size of it. Why didn't you say so before? She said, laughing gleefully. You give me such a fright. Why, of course, now as long as we die, we'll be with Mother again. Yes, you will, dearie. And you too. I'll tell her how awful good you've been. I'll bet she meets us at the door of heaven with a big pitcher of water and a lot of buckwheat cakes, hot and toasted on both sides, like Bob and me was fond of. How long will it be first? I don't know. Not very long. The man's eyes were fixed upon the northern horizon. In the blue vault of the heaven there had appeared 3 little specks which increased in size every moment. So rapidly did they approach. They speedily resolved themselves into 3 large brown birds, which circled over the heads of the 2 wanderers, and then settled upon some rocks which overlooked them. They were buzzards, the vultures of the west, whose coming is the forerunner of death. Cocks and hens, cried the little girl gleefully, pointing at their ill-omened forms, and clapping her hands to make them rise. Say, did God make this country? In course he did, said her companion, rather startled by this unexpected question. He made the country down in Illinois, and he made the Missouri, the little girl continued. I guess somebody else made the country in these parts. It's not nearly so well done. They forgot the water and the trees. What would you think of offering up prayer? The man asked diffidently. It ain't night yet, she answered. It don't matter. It ain't quite regular, but he won't mind that, you bet. You say over them ones that you used to say every night in the wagon when we was on the plains. Why don't you say some yourself? The child asked with wondering eyes. I disremember them, he answered. I ain't said none since I was half the height of that gun. I guess it's never too late. You say them out, and I'll stand by and come in on the choruses. Then you'll need to kneel down, and me too, she said, laying the shawl out for that purpose. You've got to put your hands up like this. It makes you feel kind of good. It was a strange sight, had there been anything but the buzzards to see it. Side by side on the narrow shawl knelt the two wanderers, the little prattling child and the reckless, hardened adventurer. Her chubby face and his haggard, angular visage were both turned up to the cloudless heaven in heartfelt entreaty to that dread being with whom they were face to face, while the two voices, the one thin and clear, the other deep and harsh, united in the entreaty for mercy and forgiveness. The prayer finished, they resumed their seat in the shadow of the boulder until the child fell asleep, nestling upon the broad breast of her protector. He watched over her slumber for some time, but nature proved to be too strong for him. For 3 days and 3 nights he had allowed himself neither rest nor repose. Slowly the eyelids drooped over the tired eyes, and the head sunk lower and lower upon the breast, until the man's grizzled beard was mixed with the gold tresses of his companion, and both slept the same deep and dreamless slumber. Had the wanderer remained awake for another half hour, a strange sight would have met his eyes. Far away on the extreme verge of the alkali plain, there rose up a little spray of dust, very slight at first, and hardly to be distinguished from the mists of the distance, but gradually growing higher and broader until it formed a solid, well-defined cloud. This cloud continued to increase in size until it became evident that it could only be raised by a great multitude of moving creatures. In more fertile spots, the observer would have come to the conclusion that one of those great herds of bisons which graze upon the prairie land was approaching him. This was obviously impossible in these arid wilds. As the whirl of dust drew nearer to the solitary bluff upon which the two castaways were reposing, the canvas-covered tilts of wagons and the figures of armed horsemen began to show up through the haze, and the apparition revealed itself as being a great caravan upon its journey for the west. But what a caravan! When the head of it had reached the base of the mountains, the rear was not yet visible on the horizon. Right across the enormous plain stretched the straggling array, wagons and carts, men on horseback and men on foot. Innumerable women who staggered along under the burdens, and children who toddled beside the wagons or peeped out from under the white coverings. This was evidently no ordinary party of immigrants, but rather some nomad people who had been compelled from stress of circumstances to seek themselves a new country. There rose through the clear air a confused clattering and rumbling from this great mass of humanity, with the creaking of wheels and the neighing of horses. Loud as it was not sufficient to rouse the two tired wayfarers above them. At the head of the column there rode a score or more of grave, iron-faced men, clad in somber homespun garments and armed with rifles. On reaching the base of the bluff, they halted and held a short council among themselves. "The wells are to the right, my brothers," said one, a hard-lipped, clean-shaven man with grizzly hair. "To the right of the Sierra Blanco, so we shall reach the Rio Grande," said another. "Fear not for water," cried a third. "He who could draw it from the rocks will not now abandon his own chosen people." "Amen, amen," responded the whole party. They were about to resume their journey when one of the youngest and keenest-eyed uttered an exclamation and pointed up at the rugged crag above them. From its summit there fluttered a little wisp of pink, showing up hard and bright against the gray rocks behind. At the sight, there was a general reining up of horses and unslinging of guns, while fresh horsemen came galloping up to reinforce the vanguard. The word Redskins was on every lip. "There can't be any number of Injuns here," said the elderly man who appeared to be in command. "We have passed the Pawnees, and there are no other tribes until we cross the great mountains. Shall I go forward and see, Brother Stangerson?" Stangerson was one of the murdered people in part 1, if you recall. "There is the link to part 1. asked one of the band. And I, cried a dozen voices. "Leave your horses below, and we will and we will await you here," the elder answered. In a moment, the young fellows had dismounted, fastening their horses, and were ascending the precipitous slope which led up to the object which had excited their curiosity. They advanced rapidly and noiselessly, with the confidence and dexterity of practiced scouts. The watchers from the plain below could see them flit from rock to rock until their figures stood out against the skyline. The young man who had first given the alarm was leading them. Suddenly, his followers saw him throw up his hands as though overcome with astonishment, and on joining him, they were affected in the same way by the sight which met their eyes. On the little plateau which crowned the barren hill, there stood a single giant boulder, and against this boulder there lay a tall man, long-bearded and hard-featured, but of an excessive thinness. His placid face and regular breathing showed that he was fast asleep. Beside him lay a little child with her round white arms encircling his brown sinewy neck, and her golden-haired head resting upon the breast of his velveteen tunic. Her rosy lips were parted, showing the regular line of snow-white teeth within, and a playful smile played over her infantile features. Her plump little white legs, terminating in white socks and neat shoes with shining buckles, offered a strange contrast to the long, shriveled members of her companion. On the ledge of rock above this strange couple there stood 3 solemn buzzards who, at the sight of the newcomers, uttered raucous screams of disappointment and flapped sullenly away. The cries of the foul birds awoke the 2 sleepers, who stared about them in bewilderment. The man staggered to his feet and looked down upon the plain which had been so desolate when sleep had overtaken him, and which was now traversed by this enormous body of men and of beasts. His face assumed an expression of incredulity as he gazed, and he passed his bony hand over his eyes. "This is what they call delirium, I guess," he muttered. The child stood beside him, holding on to the skirt of his coat, and said nothing but looked all round her with the wondering, questioning gaze of childhood. The rescuing party were speedily able to convince the 2 castaways that their appearance was no delusion. One of them seized the little girl and hoisted her upon his shoulder, while 2 others supported her gaunt companion and assisted him towards the wagons. "My name is John Ferrier," the wanderer explained. "Me and that little one are all that's left of 21 people. The rest is all dead of thirst and hunger away down in the south." "Is she your child?" asked someone. "I guess she is now," the other cried defiantly. "She's mine because I saved her. No man will take her from me. She's Lucy Ferrier from this day on. Who are you, though?" He continued, glancing with curiosity at his stalwart sunbird rescuers. "There seems to be a powerful lot of you." "Nigh upon 10,000, said one of the young men. "We are the persecuted children of God, the chosen of the angel Moroni." "I never heard tell of him," said the wanderer. "He appears to have chosen a fair crowd of you." "Do not jest as that which is sacred," said the other sternly. "We are of those who believe in those sacred writings drawn in Egyptian letters on plates of beaten gold, which were handed unto the holy Joseph Smith at Palmyra." When they first showed up, I was like, I swear to God, these are Mormons. This is great. Sam, who is lurking, will understand why I find it great. You guys should go watch Screaming into the Void last Saturday. "We have come from Nauvoo in the state of Illinois, where we had founded our temple. We have come to seek a refuge from the violent man and from the godless, even though it be the heart of the desert." The name of Nauvoo evidently recalled recollections to John Ferrier. "I see," he said. "You are the Mormons." "We are the Mormons," answered his companions with one voice. "And where are you going?" "We do not know. The hand of God is leading us under the person of our prophet. You must come before him. He shall say what is to be done with you." They had reached the base of the hill by this time and were surrounded by crowds of the pilgrims. Pale-faced, meek-looking women, strong, laughing children, and anxious, earnest-eyed men. Many were the cries of astonishment and of commiseration which arose from them when they perceived the youth of one of the strangers and the destitution of the other. Their escort did not halt, however, but pushed on, followed by a great crowd of Mormons until they reached a wagon which was conspicuous for its great size and for the gaudiness and smartness of its appearance. 6 horses were yoked to it, whereas the others were furnished with 2 or at most 4 apiece. Beside the driver, there sat a man who could not have been more than 30 years of age, but whose massive head and resolute expression marked him as a leader. He was reading a brown-backed volume, but as the crowd approached, he laid it aside and listened attentively to an account of the episode. Then he turned to the 2 castaways. If we take you with us, he said in solemn words, it can only be as believers in our own creed. We shall have no wolves in our fold. Better far that your bones should bleach in this wilderness than that you should prove to be that little speck of decay which in time corrupts the whole fruit. Will you come with us on these terms? Guess I'll come with you on any terms, said Ferrier with such emphasis that the grave elders could not restrain a smile. The leader alone retained his stern, impressive expression. Take him, Brother Stangerson, he said. Give him food and drink, and the child likewise. Let it be your task also to teach him our holy creed. We have delayed long enough. Forward, on to Zion. On to Zion, cried the crowd of Mormons, and the words rippled down the long caravan, passing from mouth to mouth until they died away in a dull murmur in the far distance. With a cracking of whips and a creaking of wheels, the great wagons got into motion, and soon the whole caravan was winding along once more. The elder to whose care the 2 waifs had been committed led them to his wagon, where a meal was already awaiting them. You shall remain here, he said. In a few days you will have recovered from your fatigues. In the meantime, remember that now and forever you are of our religion. Brigham Young has said it, and he has spoken with the voice of Joseph Smith, which is the voice of God. I cannot believe that this is happening right now. To any who are not currently aware, I was raised Mormon. And on Samuel the Infamous's channel last week for his 150th episode, our 150th episode, we watched The Godmakers, I think is what it was called, which is this documentary style of disparaging the Mormon religion based out of whole cloth for most of the things that they made up. But some of the stuff was true. And there were some things that were adjacent to truth, but not the actual truth. Judge me not, for I have not set foot in a church since I was 17 years old. Or judge me. I don't care. Let's see. Hello, Dom. Late as usual. Actually, not usual. How dare you be late anyway? I told you the time in the tweet. I'm pretty sure you retweeted the tweet. Yes, it is a journey to the West. Thank you. Hi, Selena. Everybody say hello to my bestie. How are you, beautiful? Did you guys start the stream for... Yeah, you started at 4 my time, I think, right? For Von Coleman. It was a novel in the Charlotte and Thomas Pitt series. Oh, from your comment earlier, Faye? Is that what you're talking about? You got thrown off because I think usually in your post you put Mountain Time first. Oh, no. So, Dom, you of all people should be aware that I think in terms of East Coast, because I'm a Red Sox fan, my entire life was always 5 p.m. start. So it was always 7 Eastern, 6 Central. That's my entire youth was just filled with that type of information where it's always just 2 hours ahead, but it was always Eastern and Central, and then everybody else can fuck off for the time zones. But it was always just descending order for the time zones. And Mountain Time would be the next time, an hour later. Do better, Dom. Do better. Yeah, Sam, when I got to like the confirmation of my suspicion, I was just like, I bet Sam was thinking in his head, she's gonna laugh when it comes up that that these are the Mormons. Noted, my dear. Thank you. So at least now we know what the connection is, like why it jumped to a random point on planet Earth, first of all, because obviously Sherlock Holmes and Watson are in London. And so when I took a peek last week, I was just like, oh, the Sierra Nevadas, interesting. But now we get the connection because this is like the family, probably like the parents, maybe, of, I can't quite recall his name. What was the guy's name? Started with an E, right? Like Edgar Stangerson or something. EJD. Oh, nope. That's a different person. Joseph Stangerson. Oh, Stangerson was was like the secretary to the main dude. Enoch J. Drebber of Cleveland. Their names are so making sense now too. Oh, this is hilarious. I find it hilarious. The timing of it couldn't be any better, Sam and chat. I guess I'll listen to the first chapter again, but you like the first chapter so far? Yes, I do. It's giving a backstory, and I liked the connection to the first part of the book. I knew what you meant. I wasn't going to correct you this time. I've already corrected you today. I'll try to limit my corrections of your misspellings or poor grammar. You're not dermy, so I'll be nicer to you. I'm going to go warm up my tea. I will be right back. At some point, I'll try to provide you some elevator music whenever I have to leave, but un momento, por favor. All right. I'll be back. So that was a fun description of, it's not technically the Montana, Wyoming, Colorado area, a little bit of the Colorado area. They all kind of blend together. What was that one word? Okay, so I was saying Crag correctly. I didn't think it was Craig, but I wanted to make sure. What was that other word that I forgot how to say? Chaparral? Chaparral? Chaparral. My bad for the mispronunciation. When it's a CH, I never know. I kind of hate how the CH can be the sh sound, the SH sound, or the hard ch, the hard C sound. I guess it'd be the hard CH, whatever. I don't have to post in Discord. Dom, this all comes back to you having liked the post and retweeting it. Reposting, whatever. Their tweets, their posts. So, the onus falls on you, my friend. I don't know how long it's going to take me to get over the fact that this is the Mormon half of the book. I wonder how prominent it's going to be. I feel like it has to be. Enoch and Joseph from the first part. This is what, 30 years before, basically? So is it going to be like a family ring? Did someone follow from the state? Well, no, because it was the cabbie. Was he a British cabbie? Okay, I should probably just continue reading. So let's do that. With how hefty this book is, because it's like the complete collection of Sherlock Holmes, I almost dropped it and lost my place because I had taken the bookmark out of it. Oops. All right. Chapter 2, The Flower of Utah. This is not the place to commemorate the trials and privations endured by the immigrant Mormons before they came to their final haven. From the shores of the Mississippi to the western slopes of the Rocky Mountains, they had struggled on with a constancy almost unparalleled in history. The savage man and the savage beast, hunger, thirst, fatigue, and disease, every impediment which nature could place in the way had all been overcome with Anglo-Saxon tenacity. Yet the long journey and the accumulated terrors had shaken the hearts of the stoutest among them. There was not one who did not sink upon his knees in heartfelt prayer when they saw the broad valley of Utah bathed in the sunlight beneath them, and learned from the lips of their leader that this was the promised land, and that these virgin acres were to be theirs forevermore. Young speedily proved himself to be a skillful administrator as well as a resolute chief. Maps were drawn and charts prepared in which the future city was sketched out. All around farms were apportioned and allotted in proportion to the standing of each individual. The tradesman was put to his trade and the artisan to his calling. In the town streets and squares sprang up as if by magic. In the country, there was drainage and hedging, planting and clearing, until the next summer saw the whole country golden with the wheat crop. Everything prospered in the strange settlement. Above all, the great temple which they had erected in the center of the city grew ever taller and larger. From the first blush of dawn until the closing of the twilight, the clatter of the hammer and the rasp of the saw was never absent from the monument which the immigrants erected to him who had led them safe through many dangers. The two castaways, John Ferrier and the little girl who had shared his fortunes and had been adopted as his daughter, accompanied the Mormons to the end of their great pilgrimage. Little Lucy Ferrier was borne along pleasantly enough in Elder Stangerson's wagon, a retreat which he shared with the Mormon's 3 wives and with his son, a headstrong, forward boy of 12. Having rallied with the elasticity of childhood from the shock caused by her mother's death, She soon became a pet with the women and reconciled herself to this new life in her moving canvas-covered home. In the meantime, Ferrier, having recovered from his privations, distinguished himself as a useful guide and an indefatigable hunter. So rapidly did he gain the esteem of his new companions that when they reached the end of their wanderings, it was unanimously agreed that he should be provided with as large and as fertile a tract of land as any of the settlers, with the exception of Young himself, and of Stangerson, Kemble, Johnston, and Drebber, who were the four principal elders. I just had a thought from part 1. Doesn't color the Mormons in a good light. Well, Drebber at least, with his interactions with that family. So this will be interesting. On the farm thus acquired, John Ferrier built himself a substantial log house, which received so many additions in succeeding years that it grew into a roomy villa. He was a man of a practical turn of mind, keen in his dealings and skillful with his hands. His iron constitution enabled him to work morning and evening at improving and tilling his lands. Hence it came about that his farm and all that belonged to him prospered exceedingly. In 3 years, he was better off than his neighbors. In 6, he was well-to-do. In 9, he was rich. And in 12, there were not half a dozen men in the whole of Salt Lake City who could compare with him. From the great inland sea to the distant Wasatch Mountains, there was no name better known than that of John Ferrier. There was one way, and only one, in which he offended the susceptibilities of his co-religionists. No argument or persuasion could ever induce him to set up a female establishment after the manner of his companions. He never gave reasons for this persistent refusal, but contented himself by resolutely and inflexibly adhering to his determination. There were some who accused him of lukewarmness in his adopted religion, and others who put it down to greed of wealth and reluctance to incur expense. Others, again, spoke of some early love affair and of a fair-haired girl who had pined away on the shores of the Atlantic. Whatever the reason, Ferrier remained strictly celibate. In every other respect, he conformed to the religion of the young settlement and gained the name of being an orthodox and straight-walking man. Lucy Ferrier grew up within the log house and assisted her adopted father in all his undertakings. The keen air of the mountains and the balsamic odor of the pine trees took the place of nurse and mother to the young girl. As year succeeded to year, she grew taller and stronger, her cheek more ruddy and her step more elastic. Many a wayfarer upon the high road which ran by Ferrier's farm felt long-forgotten thoughts revive in their mind as they watched her lithe, girlish figure tripping through the wheat fields, or met her mounted upon her father's Mustang, not the car, the horse, and managing it with all the ease and grace of a true child of the West. So the bud blossomed into a flower, and the year which saw her father the richest of the farmers left her as a fair specimen of American girlhood as could be found in the whole Pacific slope. It was not the father, however, who first discovered that the child had developed into the woman. It seldom is in such cases. That mysterious change is too subtle and too gradual to be measured by dates. Least of all does the maiden herself know it until the tone of a voice or the touch of a hand sets her heart thrilling within her, and she learns with a mixture of pride and of fear that a new and a larger nature has awoken within her. There are few who cannot recall that day and remember the one little incident which heralded the dawn of a new life. In the case of Lucy Ferrier, the occasion was serious enough in itself, apart from its future influence on her destiny and that of many besides. It was a warm June morning, and the Latter-day Saints were as busy as the bees whose hive they have chosen for their emblem. In the fields and in the streets rose the same hum of human industry. Down the dusty high roads defiled long streams of heavily laden mules, all heading to the west, for the gold fever had broken out in California, and the overland route lay through the city of the elect. There, too, were droves of sheep and bullocks coming in from the outlying pasture lands, and trains of tired immigrants, men and horses equally weary of their interminable journey. Through all this motley assemblage, threading her way with the skill of an accomplished rider, there galloped Lucy Ferrier, her fair face flushed with the exercise and her long chestnut hair floating out behind her. She had a commission from her father in the city and was dashing in as she had done many a time before, with all the fearlessness of youth, and thinking only of her task and how it was to be performed. The travel-stained adventurers gazed after her in astonishment, and even the unemotional Indians, journeying in with their pelties, relaxed their accustomed stoicism as they marveled at the beauty of the pale-faced maiden. She had reached the outskirts of the city when she found the road blocked by a great drove of cattle, driven by a half-dozen wild-looking herdsmen from the plains. In her impatience, she endeavored to pass this obstacle by pushing her horse into what appeared to be a gap. Scarcely had she got fairly into it, however, before the beasts closed in behind her, and she found herself completely embedded in the moving stream of fierce-eyed, long-horned bullocks. Accustomed as she was to deal with cattle, she was not alarmed at her situation, but took advantage of every opportunity to urge her horse on in the hopes of pushing her way through the cavalcade. Unfortunately, the horns of one of the creatures, either by accident or design, came in violent contact with the flank of the Mustang and excited it to madness. In an instant, it reared up upon its hind legs with a snort of rage and pranced and tossed in a way that would have unseated any but a most skillful rider. The situation was full of peril. Every plunge of the excited horse brought it against the horns again and goaded it to fresh madness. It was all that the girl could do to keep herself in the saddle, yet a slip would mean a terrible death under the hooves of the unwieldy and terrified animals. Unaccustomed to sudden emergencies, her head began to swim and her grip upon the bridle to relax. Choking by the rising cloud of dust and by the steam from the struggling creatures, she might have abandoned her efforts in despair, but for a kindly voice at her elbow which assured her of assistance. At the same moment, a sinewy brown hand caught the frightened horse by the curb and, forcing a way through the drove, soon brought her to the outskirts. "You're not hurt, I hope, miss," said her preserver respectfully. She looked up at his dark, fierce face and laughed saucily. "I'm awful frightened," she said naively. Whoever would have thought that Poncho would have been so scared by a lot of cows? "Thank God you kept your seat," the other said earnestly. He was a tall, savage-looking young fellow, mounted on a powerful roan horse and clad in the rough dress of a hunter, with a long rifle slung over his shoulders. "I guess you were the daughter of John Ferrier," he remarked. "I saw you ride down from his house. When you see him, ask him if he remembers the Jefferson Hopes of St. Louis. If he's the same Ferrier, my father and he were pretty thick." "Hadn't you better come and ask yourself?" she asked demurely. The young fellow seemed pleased at the suggestion, and his dark eyes sparkled with pleasure. "I'll do so," he said. "We've been in the mountains for 2 months and are not over and above in visiting condition. He must take us as he finds us." "He has a good deal to thank you for, and so have I," she answered. "He's awful fond of me. If those cows had jumped on me, he'd have never got over it." "Neither would I," said her companion. "You? Well, I don't see that it would make much matter to you anyhow. You ain't even a friend of ours." The young hunter's dark face grew so gloomy over this remark that Lucy Ferrier laughed aloud. "There, I didn't mean that," she said. "Of course you are a friend now. You must come and see us. Now I must push along, or father won't trust me with his business any more. Goodbye." "Goodbye," he answered, raising his broad sombrero and bending over her little hand. She wheeled her Mustang round, gave it a cut with her riding whip, and darted away down the broad road in a rolling cloud of dust. Young Jefferson Hope rode on with his companions, gloomy and taciturn. He and they had been among the Nevada mountains prospecting for silver and were returning to Salt Lake City in the hope of raising capital enough to work some lodes which they had discovered. He had been as keen as any of them upon the busyness until this sudden incident had drawn his thoughts into another channel. The sight of the fair young girl, as frank and wholesome as the Sierra breezes, had stirred his volcanic, untamed heart to its very depths. When she had vanished from his sight, he realized that a crisis had come in his life, and that neither silver speculations nor any other questions could ever be of such importance to him as this new and all-absorbing one. The love which had sprung up in his heart was not the sudden, changeable fancy of a boy, but rather the wild, fierce passion of a man of strong will and imperious temper. He had been accustomed to succeed in all that he undertook. He swore in his heart that he would not fail in this if human effort and human perseverance could render him successful. He called on John Ferrier that night, and many times again, until his face was as a familiar one as the farmhouse. John, cooped up in the valley and absorbed in his work, had had little chance of learning the news of the outside world during the last 12 years. All this Jefferson Hope was able to tell him, and in a style which interested Lucy as well as her father. He had been a pioneer in California and could narrate many strange tales of fortunes made and fortunes lost in those wild, halcyon days. He had been a scout, too, and a trapper, a silver explorer, and a ranchman. Wherever stirring adventures were to be had, Jefferson Hope had been there in search of them. He soon became a favorite with the old farmer, who spoke eloquently of his virtues. On such occasions, Lucy was silent, but her blushing cheek and her bright, happy eyes showed only too clearly that her young heart was no longer her own. Her honest father may not have observed these symptoms, but they were assuredly not thrown away upon the man who had won her affections. It was a summer evening when he came galloping down the road and pulled up at the gate. She was at the doorway and came down to meet him. He threw the bridle over the fence and strode up the pathway. "I am off, Lucy," he said, taking her two hands in his and gazing tenderly down into her face. "I won't ask you to come with me now, but will you be ready to come when I am here again?" "And when will that be?" she asked, blushing and laughing. "A couple of months at the outside. I will come and claim you then, my darling. There's no one who can stand between us." "And how about father?" she asked. "He has given his consent, provided we get these mines working all right. I have no fear on that head." "Oh, well, of course, if you and father have arranged it all, there's no more to be said," she whispered with her cheek against his broad breast. "Thank God," he said hoarsely, stooping and kissing her. "It is settled then. The longer I stay, the harder it will be to go. They are waiting for me at the canyon. Goodbye, my own darling. Goodbye. In 2 months, you shall see me." He tore himself from her as he spoke, and flinging himself upon his horse, galloped furiously away, never even looking round, as though afraid that his resolution might fail him if he took one glance at what he was leaving. She stood at the gate, gazing after him until he vanished from her sight. Then she walked back into the house, the happiest girl in all Utah. Sorry, guys, I apparently stumbled into a romance novel on the wild plains. Though I like Lucy. I like her attitude. Definitely a country girl. Now I'm wondering, though, what's going to happen in these 2 months with, like, the Stangerson kid or Drebber. And I don't think we got the name at the end of part 1 of the cabbie that killed him. So it could be Jefferson Hope. Got the wrong author. Anne Perry was a convict. Okay. Duly noted. It's okay, Kel. I forgive you. I don't forgive Dom, but I forgive you. By the way, Dom was late too. It is a different day and time, so I'm pretty forgiving. Getting stomped by a horse is preferable to being bitten by one. I can attest to that personally. Yeah, though that's how my dad broke his back. Well, the first time. Basically, it like cracked the vertebra at the bottom of his spine. he officially broke it when he was deep sea fishing and got impatient. So Sherlock Holmes won't be in this chapter, I guess. No. So this is like if you go back and listen, when you go back and listen to the first chapter, this is kind of like the prequel, like what led up to the crime. That's what I'm assuming, because it's the same names and everything. So, yeah. Yes, wow, be shocked. I don't know what this reaction is from Legatus, though. What is your shock for, my friend? All right. I'm going to check something really quick. I do have a bit of a time crunch. Probably have 45 minutes to an hour. Ooh, chapter 3 is very short. We'll probably do the first 4 chapters of this part this week and then finish it next. Should be fine. Did I get blurry again? Yeah. My freaking connection is unstable. I swear it's always this time of day. Oh, wait, no. We're not even at the normal start time. Oops. My bad, y'all. I guess I should get to reading then, since listening is the only thing you can really do when I'm that pixelated. What's the name of the next book you're doing again? Okay, so at the beginning, I'll bring this up now, actually. So at the beginning of the stream, I gave a brief communique. So the last week of August and the first week of September, I will be in Cambodia and Vietnam. So I will not have internet access to be able to read those 2 Wednesdays. I'll actually be on a plane to Cambodia on the 22nd or 27th. So what I think I might do is have a quick let it simmer once I finish this next week. On the 13th. That doesn't work. I don't know. I'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. I guess I could have waited a week to pick this back up next Wednesday, but I didn't want to because I wanted to keep reading. We'll figure it out. But The Sign of the Four, Dom, is the next one that I will read. So yeah, we'll see. What would you say is your updated list of rankings for all the books we read so far? I don't know. Let me think on that. I'll get back to you, Dom. I'll get back to you next Wednesday. Just maybe remind me to think on it. Can't just throw that question at me. We've read quite a few books, you know. And hello, Cancel This Podcast. Welcome. Thank you for stopping in. Just have Dermy fill in. Yeah, I'll have Dermy fill in for reading this. That'll happen. I'm going on a cruise. That's all I'll say. Perks of the industry I work in. Don't freaking judge me. You don't know me. Okay, you know me a little, but whatever. And it looks like I got $2 from Darmuth. Darmuth? Forgive my mispronunciation, sir. Thank you. Hello, fellow Rumbler. Hope you're having a great day and an even better weekend. Have fun. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. And yes, I did see it. I appreciate it. Yell at me if I mispronounced your name. Like, it reminds me of vermouth, but I don't even know if that's the spelling of vermouth. Now I have to look it up because that's what I do. Okay, it's not the spelling. I didn't think so. Is this comment to me? If so, yeah, I hang out. Well, I used to hang out on Locals, but had hit some life snags, so I had to pull back from that. It's based off of vermouth. That's a cool guess of mine. Oh, and you sent $3. Thank you to say I got it right. Yay! I can read. But I appreciate you both hanging out in Rumble. I don't normally have a Rumble following. Not following, but live stream chat. That's what I meant to say. I didn't even hit play on my Rumble. Not that I need to see myself. But to the new people in chat, welcome. This is Cooking the Books, where I take the book list collecting dust in the corner, read it to you so you don't have to, because nobody's got time for that. I love to read, and I figure there's a lot of people out there who either don't like to read, can't read well, or have some other issue, like similar time type of stuff, and like to listen to books. So I figured I would chat with my chat while live streaming and reading to y'all. So I appreciate anybody who watches on the replay and watches live. So thank you, everybody. And I chit chat in between chapters as well. So I'll read a chapter, and then stop to chit chat in between. So that's what we're on right now. I have not seen Apocalypse Now. If that question is directed at me, Kel, I have answered. And yes, I am very glad to have you here. I appreciate it. Cancel this podcast. You guys are awesome. Understandable. I go around on Friday and do my pay it forward stream and just pay it forward. Glad to stop by here. Thank you. I appreciate it. Friday is not my normal day for reading. For Cooking the Books, it's Wednesdays. But I wasn't feeling well this week, and I didn't want to wait until next Wednesday to keep reading this book because it's been a fun read so far. I'm not pulling that up, Dom. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people have been interested in this one. I've never read the Sherlock Holmes books. I've watched the shows and movies and such. But actually, I don't know if I've watched the shows. Maybe I should. But yeah, so sometimes I've read the books that I read for the streams, and at other times I have not. And so some people in the chat have. And that's the case with this one. Have you ever listened to the BBC radio drama? I have not, but I think someone told me about it last week, or maybe it was the first stream. It might have been Toxic Man Flu who told me. Actually, I think I might have put it on my phone. I tried to do that. I have like a notepad app. Sherlock Holmes in 1984, Jeremy Brett and David Burke. Is that the BBC drama? One with Jeremy Brett and David Burke? Because if it is, it was suggested to me, so I have it written down. We can find the time. Apocalypse Now, I'm assuming, Kel. Bought the book with the whole collection. That, and it's copyright free. You mean this book? Oh, okay. Cool. So it's a different one than that, is what you're saying. But the one that I stated is on YouTube. Well, I'm going to quickly knock out this next chapter because it is quite short. So I will be back to you momentarily. Chapter 3. John Ferrier talks with the prophet. 3 weeks had passed since Jefferson Hope and his comrades had departed from Salt Lake City. John Ferrier's heart was sore within him when he thought of the young man's return and of the impending loss of his adopted child. Yet her bright and happy face reconciled him to the arrangement more than any argument could have done. He had always determined, deep down in his resolute heart, that nothing would ever induce him to allow his daughter to wed a Mormon. Such a marriage he regarded as no marriage at all, but as a shame and a disgrace. Whatever he might think of the Mormon doctrines, upon that one point he was inflexible. He had to seal his mouth on the subject, however, for to express an unorthodox opinion was a dangerous matter in those days in the land of the saints. Yes, a dangerous matter. So dangerous that even the most saintly dared only whisper their religious opinions with bated breath, lest something which fell from their lips might be misconstrued and bring down a swift retribution upon them. The victims of persecution had now turned persecutors on their own account, and persecutors of the most terrible description. Not the Inquisition of Seville, nor the German Wemgericht. I do not speak German, nor read it. Nor the secret societies of Italy were ever able to put a more formidable machinery in motion than that which cast a cloud over the territory of Utah. Its invisibility and the mystery which was attached to it made this organization doubly terrible. It appeared to be omniscient and omnipotent, and yet was neither seen nor heard. The man who held out against the church vanished away, and none knew whither he had gone or what had befallen him. His wife and his children awaited him at home, but no father ever returned to tell them how he had fared at the hands of his secret judges. A rash word or a hasty act was followed by annihilation, and yet none knew what the nature might be of this terrible power which was suspended over them. No wonder that men went about in fear and trembling, and that even in the heart of the wilderness they dared not whisper the doubts which oppressed them. At first, this vague and terrible power was exercised only upon the recalcitrants who, having embraced the Mormon faith, wished afterwards to pervert or to abandon it. Soon, however, it took a wider range. The supply of adult women was running short, and polygamy without a female population on which to draw was a barren doctrine indeed. Strange rumors began to be bandied about. Rumors of murdered immigrants and rifled camps in regions where Indians had never been seen. Fresh women appeared in the harems of the elders, women who pined and wept and bore upon their faces the traces of an unextinguishable horror. Belated wanderers upon the mountains spoke of gangs of armed men, masked, stealthy, and noiseless, who flitted by them in the darkness. These tales and rumors took substance and shape, and were corroborated and re-corroborated until they resolved themselves into a definite name. To this day, in the lonely ranches of the West, the name of the Danite Band, or the Avenging Angels, is a sinister and an ill-omened one. Fuller knowledge of the organization which produced such terrible results served to increase rather than to lessen the horror which inspired in the minds of men. None knew who belonged to this ruthless society. The names of the participators in the deeds of blood and violence done under the name of religion were kept profoundly secret. The very friend to whom you communicated your misgivings as to the prophet and his mission might be one of those who would come forth at night with fire and sword to exact a terrible reparation. Hence every man feared his neighbor, and none spoke of the things which were nearest his heart. One fine morning, John Ferrier was about to set out to his wheat fields when he heard the click of the latch, and looking through the window, saw a stout, sandy-haired, middle-aged man coming up the pathway. His heart leapt to his mouth, for this was none other than the great Brigham Young himself. Full of trepidation, for he knew that such a visit boded him little good, Ferrier ran to the door to greet the Mormon chief. The latter, however, received his salutations coldly and followed him with a stern face into the sitting room. "Brother Ferrier," he said, taking a seat and eyeing the farmer keenly from under his light-colored eyelashes, "the true believers have been good friends to you. We picked you up when you were starving in the desert. We shared our food with you, led you safe to the chosen valley, gave you a goodly share of land, and allowed you to wax rich under our protection. Is not this so?" "It is so," answered John Ferrier. "In return for all this, we asked but one condition. That was that you should embrace the true faith and conform in every way to its usages. This you promised to do, and this, if common report says truly, you have neglected." "And how have I neglected it?" asked Ferrier, throwing out his hands in expostulation. "Have I not given to the common fund? Have I not attended at the temple? Have I not?" "Where are your wives?" asked Young, looking round him. "Call them in, that I may greet them." "It is true that I have not married," Ferrier answered, "but women were few, and there were many who had better claims than I. I was not a lonely man. I had my daughter to attend to my wants." It is, ugh, all right. "It is of that daughter that I would speak to you," said the leader of the Mormons. "She has grown to be the flower of Utah, and has found favor in the eyes of many who are high in the land." John Ferrier groaned internally. "There are stories of her which I would fain disbelieve. Stories that she is sealed to some Gentile." Sam, if you're able to comment, Mormons, at least when I was growing up, did not call people not of the religion Gentiles. I've only heard that term when it comes to the Jewish faith. So this is interesting. I told you I had foreboding thoughts on what might take place here. "This must be the gossip of idle tongues. What is the 13th rule in the code of the sainted Joseph Smith? Let every maiden of the true faith marry one of the elect, for if she wed a Gentile, she commits a grievous sin. This being so, it is impossible that you, who profess the Holy Creed, should suffer your daughter to violate it." John Ferrier made no answer, but he played nervously with his riding whip. "Upon this one point, your whole faith shall be tested. So it has been decided in the sacred council of four. The girl is young, and we would not have her wed gray hairs, neither would we deprive her of all choice. We elders have many heifers, but our children must also be provided. Stangerson has a son, and Drebber has a son, and either of them would gladly welcome your daughter to their house. Let her choose between them. They are young and rich, and of the true faith. What say you to that?" Ferrier remained silent for some little time with his brows knitted. "You will give us time," he said at last. "My daughter is very young. She is scarce of an age to marry." "She shall have a month to choose," said Young, rising from his seat. "At the end of that time she shall give her answer." He was passing through the door when he turned, with flushed face and flashing eyes. "It was better for you, John Ferrier," he thundered, "that you and she were now lying blanched skeletons upon the Sierra Blanco, than that you should put your weak wills against the orders of the Holy Four." With a threatening gesture of his hand, he turned from the door, and Ferrier heard his heavy steps scrunching along the shingly path. He was still sitting with his elbows upon his knees, considering how he should broach the matter to his daughter, when a soft hand was laid upon his, and looking up, he saw her standing beside him. One glance at her pale, frightened face showed him that she had heard what had passed. "I could not help it," she said, in answer to his look. His voice rang through the house. "Oh, father, father, what shall we do?" "Don't you scare yourself," he answered, drawing her to him and passing his broad, rough hand caressingly over her chestnut hair. "We'll fix it up somehow or another. You don't find your fancy kind of lessening for this chap, do you?" A sob and a squeeze of his hand was her only answer. "No, of course not. I shouldn't care to hear you say you did. He's a likely lad, and he's a Christian, which is more than these folk here, in spite of all their praying and preaching. There's a party starting for Nevada tomorrow, and I'll manage to send him a message letting him know the hole we are in. If I know anything of that man, he'll be back here with a speed that would whip electro-telegraphs." Lucy laughed through her tears at her father's description. When he comes, he will advise us for the best. But it is for you that I am frightened, dear. One hears such dreadful stories about those who oppose the prophet. Something terrible always happens to them. But we haven't opposed him yet, her father answered. It will be time to look out for squalls when we do. We have a clear month before us. At the end of that, I guess we had best shin out of Utah. Leave Utah? That's about the size of it. But the farm? We will raise as much as we can in money and let the rest go. To tell the truth, Lucy, it isn't the first time I've thought of doing it. I don't care about knuckling under to any man, as these folk do to their darned prophet. I'm a freeborn American, and it's all new to me. Guess I'm too old to learn. If he comes browsing about this farm, he might chance to run up against a charge of buckshot traveling in the opposite direction. But they won't let us leave, his daughter objected. Wait till Jefferson comes, and we'll soon manage that. In the meantime, don't you fret yourself, my dearie, and don't get your eyes swelled up, else he'll be walking into me when he sees you. There's nothing to be afeared about, and there's no danger at all. John Ferrier uttered these consoling marks in a very confident tone, but she could not help observing that he had paid unusual care to the fastening of the doors that night, and that he carefully cleaned and loaded the rusty old shotgun which hung upon the wall of his bedroom. This is an interesting take on Mormons, but I shouldn't be surprised. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Thank you for linking to that. I appreciate it, Daramuth. And thanks for stopping by. Keep spreading the love, man. I never heard that as a kid. So Mormons use Gentile in reference to non-Mormons except Jews. They can't be sealed to one, though. That's reserved for Mormon marriages exclusively. Not a single time do I remember that ever being said. Oh, well, yeah, okay. Or Gentile, genteel. Was I saying genteel? Whatever. So can't her betrothed just convert to Mormon? I mean, he can, yes. Converts are common because you have to grow the religion somehow. But it doesn't go against the faith to marry non-Mormon. Okay, I don't know what button I clicked. I did not mean to. Okay, there we go. Sorry, I was asking my brother because his memory is way better than mine. He didn't really have an answer, though. Like, he's heard of the term Gentile, but not, like, within the religion. So, it's interesting. Yeah, they've been really lazy lately, Dom. They're sleeping elsewhere. 'Tis what it is. I had no idea that this was coming into play. So this is interesting. It's not like I was there, though, so. That is so not what was said at all. But nice try, Dom. Nice try. And of course, you went to Twitter to do that. You're such a dork, Dom. Yes, it's definitely framing, like it's giving us a good picture of what probably happened for the murder to take place. Which, I mean, I wouldn't say it's unwarranted, depending on what happens. I have my guesses. I just hope it isn't like the worst option that it could be, because it definitely could be a terrible option. Was I really saying gentiles? Gentile. I'm such a dork sometimes. All right, let me just check this one more time. Okay, I am going to continue on with one more chapter for this week's reading, and we will pick up on it next week. Chapter 4, A Flight for Life. On the morning which followed his interview with the Mormon prophet, John Ferrier went into Salt Lake City, and having found his acquaintance, who was bound for the Nevada mountains, he entrusted him with his message to Jefferson Hope. In it, he told the young man of the imminent danger which threatened them, and how necessary it was that he should return. Having done thus, he felt easier in his mind and returned home with a lighter heart. As he approached his farm, he was surprised to see a horse hitched to each of the posts of the gate. Still more surprised was he on entering to find two young men in possession of his sitting room. One with a long, pale face was leaning back in the rocking chair with his feet cocked up upon the stove. The other, a bull-necked youth with coarse, bloated features, was standing in front of the window with his hands in his pocket, whistling a popular hymn. Both of them nodded to Ferrier as he entered, and the one in the rocking chair commenced the conversation. "Maybe you don't know us," he said. "This here is the son of Elder Drebber, and I'm Joseph Stangerson, who traveled with you in the desert when the Lord stretched out his hand and gathered you into the true fold. As he will all the nations in his own good time," said the other in a nasal voice. "He grindeth slowly, but exceeding small." John Ferrier bowed coldly. He had guessed who his visitors were. "We have come," continued Stangerson, "at the advice of our fathers to solicit the hand of your daughter for whichever of us may seem good to you and to her. As I have but 4 wives, and Brother Drebber here has 7, it appears to me that my claim is the stronger one." "Nay, nay, Brother Stangerson," cried the other. "The question is not how many wives we have, but how many we can keep. My father has now given over his mills to me, and I am the richer man." "But my prospects are better," said the other warmly. "When the Lord removes my father, I shall have his tanning yard and his leather factory. Then I am your elder and am higher in the church." "It will be for the maiden to decide," rejoined young Drebber, smirking at his own reflection in the glass. "We will leave it all to her decision." During this dialogue, John Ferrier had stood fuming in the doorway, hardly able to keep his riding whip from the backs of his 2 visitors. "Look here," he said at last, striding up to them. "When my daughter summons you, you can come, but until then, I don't want to see your faces again." The 2 young Mormons stared at him in amazement. In their eyes, this competition between them for the maiden's hand was the highest of honors both to her and her father. "There are 2 ways out of the room," cried Ferrier. "There is the door, and there is the window. Which do you care to use?" His brown face looked so savage, and his gaunt hands so threatening, that his visitors sprang to their feet and beat a hurried retreat. The old farmer followed them to the door. "Let me know when you have settled which it is to be," he said sardonically. "You shall smart for this," Stangerson cried, white with rage. "You have defied the prophet and the council of four. You shall rue it to the end of your days." "The hand of the Lord shall be heavy upon you," cried young Drebber. "He will arise and smite you." "Then I'll start the smiting," exclaimed Ferrier furiously, and would have rushed upstairs for his gun had not Lucy seized him by the arm and restrained him. Before he could escape from her, the clatter of horses' hooves told him that they were beyond his reach. "The young canting rascals!" he exclaimed, wiping the perspiration from his forehead. "I would sooner see you in your grave, my girl, than the wife of either of them." "And so should I, father," she answered with spirit, "but Jefferson will soon be here." "Yes, it will not be long before he comes. The sooner the better, for we do not know what their next move may be." It was indeed high time that someone capable of giving advice and help should come to the aid of the sturdy old farmer and his adopted daughter. In the whole history of the settlement, there had never been such a case of rank disobedience to the authority of the elders. If minor errors were punished so sternly, what would be the fate of this arch rebel? Ferrier knew that his wealth and position would be of no avail to him. Others as well known and as rich as himself had been spirited away before now, and their goods given over to the church. He was a brave man, but he trembled at the vague, shadowy terrors which hung over him. Any known danger he could face with a firm lip, but this suspense was unnerving. He concealed his fears from his daughter, however, and affected to make light of the whole matter, though she, with the keen eye of love, saw plainly that he was ill at ease. He expected that he would receive some message or remonstrance from Young as to his conduct, and he was not mistaken, though it came in an unlooked-for manner. Upon rising next morning, he found, to his surprise, a small square of paper pinned on to the coverlid of his bed, just over his chest. On it was printed in bold, straggling letters, 29 days are given you for amendment, and then... The dash was more fear-inspiring than any threat could have been. How this warning came into his room puzzled John Ferrier sorely, for his servants slept in an outhouse, and the doors and windows had all been secured. He crumpled the paper up and said nothing to his daughter, but the incident struck a chill into his heart. The 29 days were evidently the balance of the month which Young had promised. What strength or courage could avail against an enemy armed with such mysterious powers? The hand which fastened that pin might have struck him to the heart, and he could never have known who had slain him. Still more shaken was he next morning. They had sat down to their breakfast when Lucy, with a cry of surprise, pointed upwards. In the center of the ceiling was scrawled, with a burned stick apparently, the number 28. To his daughter it was unintelligible, and he did not enlighten her. That night he sat up with his gun and kept watch and ward. He saw and he heard nothing, and yet in the morning a great 27 had been painted upon the outside of his door. Thus day followed day, and as sure as morning came, he found that his unseen enemies had kept their register and had marked up in some conspicuous position how many days were still left to him out of the month of grace. Sometimes the fatal numbers appeared upon the walls, sometimes upon the floors. Occasionally they were on small placards stuck upon the garden or the railings. With all his vigilance, John Ferrier could not discover whence these daily warnings proceeded. A horror, which almost superstitious, came upon him at the sight of them. He became haggard and restless, and his eyes had the troubled look of some hunted creature. He had but one hope in life now, and that was for the arrival of the young hunter from Nevada. 20 had changed to 15, and 15 to 10, but there was no news of the absentee. One by one, the numbers dwindled down, and still there came no sign of him. Whenever a horseman clattered down the road or a driver shouted at his team, the old farmer hurried to the gate thinking that help had arrived at last. At last, when he saw 5 give way to 4 and that again to 3, he lost heart and abandoned all hope of escape. Single-handed, and with his limited knowledge of the mountains which surrounded the settlement, he knew that he was powerless. The more frequented roads were strictly watched and guarded, and none could pass along them without an order from the council. Turn which way he would, there appeared to be no avoiding the blow which hung over him. Yet the old man never wavered in his resolution to part with life itself before he consented to what he regarded as his daughter's dishonor. He was sitting alone one evening, pondering deeply over his troubles and searching vainly for some way out of them. That morning had shown the figure 2 upon the wall of his house, and the next day would be the last of the allotted time. What was to happen then? All manner of vague and terrible fancies filled his imagination, and his daughter, what was to become of her after he was gone? Was there no escape from the invisible network which was drawn all around them? He sank his head upon the table and sobbed at the sight of his own impotence. What was that? In the silence, he heard a gentle scratching sound, low, but very distinct in the quiet of the night. It came from the door of the house. Ferrier crept into the hall and listened intently. There was a pause for a few moments, and then the low, insidious sound was repeated. Someone was evidently tapping very gently upon one of the panels of the door. Was it some midnight assassin who had come to carry out the murderous orders of the secret tribunal? Or was it some agent who was marking up the last day of grace had arrived? John Ferrier felt that instant death would be better than the suspense which shook his nerves and chilled his heart. Springing forward, he drew the bolt and threw the door open. Outside, all was calm and quiet. The night was fine, and the stars were twinkling brightly overhead. The little front garden lay before the farmer's eyes, bounded by the fence and gate, but neither there nor on the road was any human being to be seen. With a sigh of relief, Ferrier looked to right and to left until, happening to glance straight down at his own feet, he saw to his astonishment a man lying flat upon his face upon the ground, with arms and legs all asprawl. Hi, Biggles. You don't have to know how to read to be here, my friend. So unnerved was he at the sight that he leaned up against the wall with his hand to his throat to stifle his inclination to call out. His first thought was that the prostrate figure was that of some wounded or dying man, but as he watched it, he saw it writhe along the ground and into the hall with the rapidity and noiselessness of a serpent. Once within the house, the man sprang to his feet, closed the door, and revealed to the astonished farmer the fierce face and resolute expression of Jefferson Hope. "Good God!" gasped John Ferrier. "How you scared me! Whatever made you come in like that?" "Give me food," the other said hoarsely. "I have had no time for bite or sup for 48 hours." He flung himself upon the cold meat and bread which were still lying upon the table from his host's supper and devoured it voraciously. "Does Lucy bear up well?" he asked when he had satisfied his hunger. "Yes, she does not know the danger," her father answered. "That is well. The house is watched on every side. That is why I crawled my way up to it. They may be darned sharp, but they're not quite sharp enough to catch a Washoe hunter." John Ferrier felt a different man now that he realized that he had a devoted ally. He seized the young man's leathery hand and wrung it cordially. "You're a man to be proud of," he said. "There are not many who would come to share our danger and our troubles." You've hit it there, pard," the young hunter answered. "I have a respect for you, but if you were alone in this business, I'd think twice before I put my head into such a hornet's nest. It's Lucy that brings me here, and before harm comes on her, I guess there will be one less of the Hope family in Utah. What are we to do? Tomorrow is your last day, and unless you act tonight, you are lost. I have a mule and 2 horses waiting in the Eagle Ravine. How much money do you have?" $2,000 in gold and 5 in notes." "That will do. I have as much more to add to it. We must push for Carson City through the mountains. You had best wake Lucy. It is as well that the servants do not sleep in the house." While Ferrier was absent, preparing his daughter for the approaching journey, Jefferson Hope packed all the eatables that he could find into a small parcel and filled a stoneware jar with water, for he knew by experience that the mountain wells were few and far between. He had hardly completed his arrangements before the farmer returned with his daughter all dressed and ready for a start. The greeting between the lovers was warm but brief, for minutes were precious and there was much to be done. "We must make our start at once," said Jefferson Hope, speaking in a low but resolute voice, like one who realizes the greatness of the peril but has steeled his heart to meet it. "The front and back entrances are watched, but with caution we may get away through the side window and across the fields. Once on the road, we are only 2 miles from the ravine where the horses are waiting. By daybreak, we should be halfway through the mountains." "What if we are stopped?" asked Ferrier. Hope slapped the revolver butt which protruded from the front of his tunic. "If they are too many for us, we shall take 2 or 3 of them with us," he said with a sinister smile. The lights inside the house had all been extinguished, and from the darkened window, Ferrier peered over the fields which had been his own, and which he was now about to abandon forever. Here you go, Dom. Coulson says hi. Yeah. He had long nerved himself to the sacrifice, however, and the thought of the honor and happiness of his daughter outweighed any regret at his ruined fortunes. All looked so peaceful and happy, the rustling trees and the broad, silent stretch of grainland, that it was difficult to realize that the spirit of murder lurked through it all. Yet the white face and set expression of the young hunter showed that in his approach to the house he had seen enough to satisfy him upon that head. Ferrier carried the bag of gold and notes. Jefferson Hope had the scanty provisions and water, while Lucy had a small bundle containing a few of her more valued possessions. Opening the window very slowly and carefully, they waited until a dark cloud had somewhat obscured the night, and then one by one passed through into the little garden. With bated breath and crouching figures, they stumbled across it and gained the shelter of the hedge, which they skirted until they came to the gap which opened into the cornfields. They had just reached this point when the young man seized his 2 companions and dragged them down into the shadow where they lay silent and trembling. It was as well that his prairie training had given Jefferson Hope the ears of a lynx. He and his friends had hardly crouched down before the melancholy hooting of a mountain owl was heard within a few yards of them, which was immediately answered by another hoot at a small distance. At the same moment, a vague, shadowy figure emerged from the gap for which they had been making and uttered the plaintive signal cry, again, on which a second man appeared out of the obscurity. "Tomorrow at midnight," said the first, who appeared to be in authority, "when the whippoorwill calls 3 times. "It is well," returned the other. "Shall I tell Brother Drebber?" "Pass it on to him, and from him to the others. 9 to 7. 7 to 5, repeated the other, and the 2 figures flitted away in different directions. Their concluding words had evidently been some form of sign and countersign. The instant that their footsteps had died away in the distance, Jefferson Hope sprang to his feet and, helping his companions through the gap, led the way across the fields at the top of his speed, supporting and half carrying the girl when her strength appeared to fail her. Hurry on, he gasped from time to time. "We are through the line of sentinels. Everything depends on speed. Hurry on." Once on the high road, they made rapid progress. Only once did they meet anyone, and then they managed to slip into a field and so avoid recognition. Before reaching the town, the hunter branched away into a rugged and narrow footpath which led to the mountains. 2 dark, jagged peaks loomed above them through the darkness, and the defile which led between them was the Eagle Ravine in which the horses were awaiting them. With unerring instinct, Jefferson Hope picked his way among the great boulders and along the bed of a dried-up watercourse until he came to the retired corner, screened with rocks, where the faithful animals had been picketed. The girl was placed upon the mule, and old Ferrier upon one of the horses, with his money bag, while Jefferson Hope led the other along the precipitous and dangerous path. It was a bewildering route for anyone who was not accustomed to face nature in her wildest moods. On the one side, a great crag towered up 1,000 feet or more, black, stern, and menacing, with long basaltic columns upon its rugged surface like the ribs of some petrified monster. On the other hand, a wild chaos of boulders and debris made all advance impossible. Between the two ran the irregular track, so narrow in places that they had to travel in Indian file, and so rough that only practiced riders could have traversed it at all. Yet in spite of all dangers and difficulties, the hearts of the fugitives were light within them, for every step increased the distance between them and the terrible despotism from which they were flying. They soon had a proof, however, that they were still within the jurisdiction of the saints. They had reached the very wildest and most desolate portion of the pass when the girl gave a startled cry and pointed upwards. On a rock which overlooked the track, showing out dark and plain against the sky, there stood a solitary sentinel. He saw them as soon as they perceived him, and his military challenge of "Who goes there?" rang through the silent ravine. "Travelers for Nevada," said Jefferson Hope, with his hand upon the rifle which hung by his saddle. They could see the lonely watcher fingering his gun and peering down at them as if dissatisfied at their reply. "By whose permission?" he asked. "The Holy Four," answered Ferrier. His Mormon experiences had taught him that that was the highest authority to which he could refer. "9 from 7, cried the sentinel. 7 from 5, returned Jefferson Hope promptly, remembering the countersign which he had heard in the garden. "Pass, and the Lord go with you," said the voice from above. Beyond his post, the path broadened out, and the horses were able to break into a trot. Looking back, they could see the solitary watcher leaning upon his gun, and knew that they had passed the outlying post of the chosen people, and that freedom lay before them. Well, shit. It's not quite a cliffhanger, right? Dom's gonna shoot me. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Did Dom chase you away, Biggles? It's not very nice. Play nice in my chat. And listen to Legatus, Biggles. You are welcome here. Especially because you're not a Yankees fan. Don't placate to him, though. I'm assuming you meant now, Dom. I don't know where Snow is. Yes, Sam is definitely happy, even though he's mostly listening tonight, so he didn't even see the cat. Fuck, marry, kill. Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson, Inspector Lestrade. Fuck Sherlock, marry Watson, and kill Lestrade. There you go, Theo. Hi, welcome. Yes, always blame Dom. Best way to go. Oops, that skipped. Dom and Biggles always arguing over balls. And strikes. He is from part 1 of this book. So basically, part 1 is the actual investigation into the crime that took place and like the backstory between Watson and Sherlock when they met and started living together as roommates and stuff. And Lestrade is one of the inspectors, the detectives. So Sherlock isn't an official detective, but he's better than the official ones. So they come to him for like advice and assistance or assistance. Although I don't know if I like Lestrade better or the other one. What was the other one's name? Tell me in chat or I'll find it before you, whichever. Started with a G, didn't it? Gregson. Found it. I actually probably like Lestrade better than I like Gregson. I don't really have much to back up that reasoning. I wonder, are they repeat characters in the books? I bet they are. I guess we'll see. All right. So that is everything for today, you guys. I don't know how I feel about all this Mormon slander, but you know, I don't know what actually took place back then. Maybe some of this shit was happening. I don't believe it was. But that's also just an inherent bias for growing up in the religion. And my knee-jerk reaction to defend modern Mormons. But with Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, I'm assuming being part of the Church of England, he wouldn't much like Mormons, so I could see why he wrote them the way he did, and therefore forgive him a little. But anyway, thank you guys for listening. And yeah, as Dom states, if you want to go back and listen to any of the books that I've read, I do have a Cook in the Books playlist, and I also have a playlist for each book where they're all in there. If you guys want to listen, if there's any, like I started with Animal Farm. That one was short and quick. I think that was only 3 streams. So yeah, anybody can listen on the replay. I don't know if I'd go that far. He likes the evil empire, of course. But I don't know. Maybe he can redeem himself at some point in life. But anyway, I do need to go make some dinner before I jump over to Ballbusters in what, an hour and a half? Yeah. So thank you everybody for hanging out. I appreciate it, since it is a Friday and there's other streams that you could be hanging out at more so than on Wednesdays. I'm sure there's other streams on Wednesdays you can hang out at too. But either way, I appreciate you choosing to take some time out of your Friday to listen to me read to you. I will be back next Wednesday, barring any unforeseen circumstances that might change that. I hope don't take place. Otherwise, you'll see me on Theo Snodgrass's channel tomorrow at noon Mountain Time for his Touchgrass podcast, and then Screaming into the Void on Samuel the Infamous's channel. Otherwise, I will see you guys next week. Have a good night and enjoy your weekend.